Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be talking about something a little bit different than what we usually show here on the channel. Something new, well, relatively new. This is the HP Pavillion 5000 desktop PC from 2005. Now, to put things into perspective, this is almost 20 years old. But why talk about this crappy, bland, grayish office-style PC? Well, it actually started with this PC right here. I saw this beautiful high-screen Pentium machine with a matching keyboard and monitor in a local ad, and I was very interested in it. It was a hell of a bargain, but the downside was that I also had to take this crappy office PC from the seller's hands. Now, I got it for free, which was okay, but normally I don't really care about these kinds of computers. But on the other hand, now that I have it, I decided to take a quick look at it, see what it was all about, and I have to say I was kind of pleasantly surprised. Now, you might ask yourself why. Well, first off, many people would probably not consider this to be a retro machine. Now, there's a lot of debate on what a retro machine actually is. I usually don't take part in these types of discussions because I think they are very, personal, sometimes even emotional. And I think everybody needs to make up his own mind on what he or she considers retro. For example, my first PC was a 486, and during my teenage years and on to my early 20s, I spent a lot of time gaming, going to LAN party with friends, visiting friends, moving our entire PCs to each other's houses to play multiplayer games. So obviously I have a lot of affinity for the whole 486, Pentium, Pentium 2, Pentium 3 era. And after that, I kind of lost interest in PCs. So stuff like Pentium 4s, Athlons, and newer CPUs don't really do it for me. However, this kind of changed with this PC over the past week. Now, obviously, I like to cover old tech on the channel and will continue to do so, like with this XT computer, or more modern stuff like a 486 or a Pentium, or even take a stab at like Super Socket 7 systems, AMDs, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, on all of that kind of modern stuff. But it's also nice to go beyond that. In 2004, realizing you probably need to have a new matching keyboard and a mouse. And these beige speakers and monitor don't really complete the system. So let's go for this modern gray LCD panel and crappy speaker look. That is, until my LCD panel decided to give up on me, leaving me with this nice little effect, but ultimately also leaving me without a display. That's what you get with this modern technology, right? Luckily, I have a spare Dell LCD panel I can use, so we're going to go with that one. And here we have it, the HP Pavillion W5000 from 2005. A typical office machine designed for Windows XP with an AMD 64 Athlon CPU. It also features these LightScribe DVD writers, which were pretty popular back in the day. It was a LightScribe technology designed by HP. The technology didn't only allow you to write data onto the disk, but also to write or to print some kind of image on top of the CD-ROM. It uses this special coding that the LightScribe DVD or CD writer could interact with and kind of print stuff on top of the physical media. Now on the front of the PC you have these two compartments. One of them is the personal drive media bay, allowing you to insert a portable hard drive, which is hooked up via USB internally, which is pretty nice. And we also have the connectivity center with lots of audio and video inputs. And you also get your standard headphone, microphone jacks, two USB 2.0 ports, and a FireWire port. We can also work with more portable compact flash storage like SD cards, compact flash, memory sticks, and we have this nice little compartment on top. I think you can store stuff like CDs in there. Moving to the back, pretty traditional layout. We have the power supply here, seems to be pretty standard. We have the I/O panel and a couple of expansion cards here. Now on the I/O shield we have the keyboard connector and the mouse connector, both PS2. We have a parallel port. We have one port which is covered by this piece of plastic here. We have 4 USB ports. We have an Ethernet, FireWire. We have a digital audio output, and then your traditional jacks for microphone output and input. And behind this cover here, we have a VGA connector, which is not being used. Do not remove. Oops. Now, the reason why this is covered is because we also have a VGA port here, which is, provided by a separate video card. We also have some video inputs here and a Wi-Fi card. Here we can see the product number, which is W5000, and the product code, which is W5350.BE. Not really sure why this is .BE, but let's take a look inside here. So we're going to take the side panel off. We see the fairly standard cooler, which was typically associated with these AMDs. We have a Best Tech power supply, not the best, I think. Here we have the CPU cooler, and we have the 3 expansion cards. So let's try and start this one up. And the following happened. You see the fans spinning, and then all of a sudden they just stop. No beeps, no output, nothing. System fan and the CPU fan start, and then they just quit. So that's not good. After some debugging, I actually got it to start with a couple of beep codes. I didn't really do anything special at this point. All of a sudden it just started beeping. I did remove the front cover of the case, and removing that front cover actually helped. So I noticed that the plastic button mechanism here on the front cover broke off, and that was actually causing the power button to be pushed in constantly, even if you only pushed it once. So that obviously means that the computer will attempt to start, but it will shut down automatically after that. So after fixing this, I was able to get the computer to start, albeit with some beep codes. So I decided to remove all of the expansion cards. We're going to take a look at them in more detail later on. Here we have a little Wi-Fi card. Next up, what appears to be some kind of, video or TV input card. And finally, we have the graphics adapter, which we're also going to be looking at later on. Next up, I wanted to take a look at the CPU. And typically you don't want to do this while the motherboard is still inside the case. It's very difficult to, get to the hinges to remove the cooler. At first attempt, I actually pulled off the cooler and CPU in one shot. I just ripped it out of the socket because they were just so firmly attached. Now, typically after you've gotten some heat into the CPU, it's fairly easy to remove the CPU cooler from the CPU, but in this case, the PC wouldn't start, so the CPU cooler and the CPU were firmly bound together. Now, you can resolve this somewhat by gently rotating the CPU cooler if possible, just to make sure that the bonding between the CPU and the cooler is loosened a bit. But fortunately, the CPU was not damaged, so I'm just going to take a quick look at it. So here you can see that cooling paste baked onto the CPU. So we're just going to be using some isopropyl alcohol and a coffee filter to remove it. Saw this trick somewhere on YouTube and kind of works well for me. So we're just going to be revealing that beautiful AMD logo here of the Athlon 64 CPU. So this is the AMD Athlon 64 3700 Plus, clocked at 2.2 gigahertz. Now this is a second revision of the AMD Athlon 64 3700 Plus using the San Diego architecture, released in April of 2005, and pretty decent CPU, I have to say. So here we have the cooler and the heatsink. So I'm just going to clean this off a little bit also. And continuing our journey. So we talked about this drive bay here. So in order to complete this assembly, we're going to be removing that also. Now this is hooked up to the computer, obviously using a power cord, and also this USB header, because obviously this external drive is going to be hooked up via USB. And to get it out, we just need to remove a couple of screws, remove the front panel of the case, and then just slide it right on out. Now our internal hard drive is also attached to this little caddy here, so we're going to be removing it as well. We just need to pull this green plastic lever here, because that's what's holding this caddy in place. And here we have a Seagate 250 gigabyte SATA hard drive. So here we get a clearer view of the motherboard. We have lots of cables, obviously, because we have lots of connectors. For the compact flash, for the audio inputs, for the USBs. So now let's take a quick look at the motherboard from MSI, which is the MS7184 version 1.0, a micro ATX board, codename Amethyst. So this is based on socket 939 for Athlon 64 CPUs. We have the RS482 North Bridge, which offers us the integrated GPU called the Radeon Express 200. It also provides us with a PCI Express 1.0 16x expansion slot. We have support for dual channel DDR400 memory chips. The South Bridge is the SB400, which offers us SATA support. So we have 2 SATA ports, we have 3 PCI slots. We also have IDE support for hooking up our CD-ROM drives. We have a floppy drive connector, which is not being used because it doesn't have a floppy drive. We have the standard ATX power supply connector. And to finish up, we have the Realtek 100 megabit Ethernet controller chip and a VIA IEEE 1394 Firewire chip. Onto the video card, and here we have the GeForce 6200 SE with Turbo Cache. Now this is a very low-end video card. It's marginally better than the integrated Express 200 card, so definitely not a speed demon. Not really sure why this card was added to this system, because like I said, it offers very little performance increase with regards to the integrated graphics. Now this uses the turbo cache mechanism, meaning that this card has 64 megabytes on board, which is definitely not enough to play a lot of games, so it can use some of the system memory. Now there were 2 more cards in the system. I'm not going to be using them. This is, I guess, some kind of TV input and video input card, which has a connector here on the back, which routes to the video input connectors on the front of the PC. And then we also have this little Wi-Fi card, which allows us to use wireless networking with this PC. Now, after putting everything back together, I was finally able to boot the PC again, and it went fine. The hard drive was detected and it started booting. And as it so often goes with these old PCs, you end up with an existing Windows XP installation that was long overdue for a reinstall, featuring lots of bloatware, and in this case also 7,261 items that are slowing this computer down. We also have lots of files from the previous owner I don't really care about and don't want to look at, so reinstalling a clean version of Windows XP, installing the video and the audio drivers is the way to go, and what we are left with is a nice clean XP desktop to start our little software journey on this PC. And boy, what a fun software journey this turned out to be. I ended up installing a whole bunch of games from around the 1998 up to 2004 time frame, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, this computer was definitely fast enough to play all of these games. I typically, when I talk about, modern systems for me on the channel, it's typically like a Pentium 2 or a Pentium 3, but this seriously overclasses these systems, and it is able to run all of the games that I threw at it without any issues. For example, here we have Carmageddon 2, which is the GOG release that I was able to just put on this PC, which ran really well. It's always nice to see this Carmageddon intro. And also, I mean, the game itself ran flawlessly on this machine. It was a really nice experience. So yeah, let me just load up the game here real quick just to give you an idea on how it runs. So even on this mediocre GeForce 6200 Turbo Cache video card, because it was released, so much later than this game really runs excellent on this PC. Now, to me, Carmageddon 2 was one of those games that never really ran nice on a Pentium 2 or a Pentium 3. Even with Voodoo graphics, I always felt that it was kind of lagging a bit. I also ran a couple of benchmarks, so just to compare them with my older Pentium 3 and Pentium 2 based systems, I went with 3D Mark 99, which does run on Windows XP, providing you provide an alternative direct draw DLL file, but after that you can run the benchmark in Windows XP. So I turned off the VSync and I ran the basic 3D benchmark using the 800 by 600 resolution. And as you can see here, everything went really smooth. We've got about 130, 140 FPS on the first racing game here, and also the first person shooter went really well. So yeah, for this type of benchmark, the machine was more than adequate. And as such, we ended up with a 3D Mark score of 13,348. So not bad for this old office PC. Now, some older titles like Midtown Madness were a little bit more difficult to run. I was able to max out all of the graphical settings. That wasn't an issue. But as soon as I started the game, I started noticing some issues. At first, I think the audio was kind of cut off for some reason. And as soon as I started the game, initially it went really well. Performance was excellent, even on these kind of maxed out settings. But pretty early on in the game, I started noticing these weird graphical artifacts in the background here. So first I thought it was the capturing card, but it actually showed up on the PC itself. So yeah, this is probably related to the fact that, combination of, fairly recent GeForce video drivers combined with a pretty old game which is not patched, which will cause these kinds of issues. But yeah, one of the things that I really like about a system like this is that, it's old enough to still play these kind of older games. I mean, obviously sometimes you will have issues, but the majority of the titles run really well. For example, here, Age of Empires, a true classic, runs perfectly on this computer, as you would imagine. So yeah, it's just really nice to to have a PC that spans several years worth of gaming that you can just install and enjoy on a single computer. But not every game went as smoothly as that. For example, Colin McRae Rally, the first version of the game, didn't want to run. So I did see the Codemasters splash screen. I saw the intro movie. But then as I wanted to progress in the game, I got this error pop up in Windows saying that I was running this in the wrong operating system, which kind of makes sense because, this was created for Windows 98 or 95. So running this on Windows XP can be challenging, but luckily within Windows XP there is an option to enable Windows 95 or Windows 98 compatibility. So when you right click on the executable, you can enable that compatibility check. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And as soon as I did that, I was able to start the game and I was able to get further into the game. But as soon as I started the race, things got really weird. And no, this is not my capturing device. This is what was going on the actual PC. So yeah, definitely not good. It ended up hanging also, and it eventually failed and exited with a Windows XP exception or error. You know, as a fan of these old 1990s real-time strategy games like Total Annihilation or StarCraft, I'm pleased to say that these games ran really well on this old Packard Bell, and I had no issues running both of them. And again, you know, it's kind of a blast to have just one single PC where you can both run these older games and also these slightly newer titles, you know, without any issues, all running Windows XP. And depending on the era you are interested in terms of games, I mean, like for example, this one is perfectly capable of playing games up to 2004, and it can even play older games as well. So you don't need to have a really beefy CPU in a system like this to already enjoy it. Basically, out of the box, this was a pretty good experience. Now, one of the joys of kind of reliving these old computer games is that you get to see these old intros again. For example, this Bugbear Entertainment intro that they had in some racing games. So this is Rally Trophy, also has a great intro into the game. It's actually a game where you get to drive like old 70s style rally cars. It has a nice little soundtrack as well. So let's take a look at the kind of cars that we can choose here. So we have the Mini Cooper, the Ford Lotus, we have the Volvo 122, the Saab, and lots of other cool cars. But now, time to get racing. And the computer doesn't have any issues running this game. Again, it has this kind of typical rally feel to it. But I love the fact that these are like all old cars that you can drive, so it's a pretty fun game. And the computer handles it beautifully. And of course we have to try this classic as well. So you might have already guessed it, this is Grand Theft Auto 3. Also an iconic game that should run pretty well on this hardware. So let's take a look at the options. Let's go into the display setup. Max out everything and let's pick a higher resolution.
This is Hit Radio Love Media Station, just one of 900 radio stations, 300 TV stations, 4 networks, 3 satellites, 10 senators. Thank you. Hit Radio.
And of course, you know, some of the more, you know, quote-unquote demanding games like Colin McRae 2, which, you know, if you bumped up the graphical settings to maximum, an early Pentium 2 or Pentium 3 would kind of struggle with this game. But, you know, on a platform like this with a very beefy CPU and even with a mediocre graphics card, I mean, you can pretty much, you know, max out all of the graphical settings and this game will just run perfectly fine. So let's take a look at some gameplay here from Colin McRae Rally 2.
3, 2, 1, go.
And it's actually with these types of games that you start to see, as you max out the settings, that both the computer, the CPU, and the GPU is able to carry the game somewhat, but you do see that you don't have an optimal frame rate here. So this game really benefits from a beefier GPU in order to make this game really playable. It's obviously also fun to play some older games like Quake 3, for example, another classic game. Obviously this hardware will run this game very well, as this is a pretty old game. But again, nice to see that this works really well, and that you can play games from like 1997, 1998, all the way up to like 2004.
You have taken the lead.
So I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of the HP Pavillion 5000. Not a machine that I would regularly show on the channel or have already shown, so a bit new for me. I kind of thought it was cool to just show off here on the channel, given that a lot of people are interested in playing these kind of old games, and having a budget PC like this that you can pick up for like 20 or 30 euros is definitely a viable option if you want to do some retro gaming. It has modern connectivity with USB, it has SATA support, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised and I had a lot of fun with this little HP office computer. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so, and I hope to see you guys very soon. Bye bye.